Hey, Necro VMX here, in time for another round of comic book reviews for this week. Let's take a look at what we got. Start with Amazing Spider-Man number 573. It's kind of a mixed bag. On the one hand, the main story is great, with the always decent art you'd expect from John Romita Jr., and it wraps up New Ways to Die pretty well. On the other hand, the new revelations about Harry Osborn are confusing at best, and the backup feature with Stephen Colbert is nothing short of horrid, with Colbert seemingly running for president, a joke about furries, and poor art. Not a bad issue, but it's not really worth the extra dollar for a bad backup feature. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Batgirl number 4 continues to be bad and unmemorable. I get it, she's morally conflicted. Could we move on to the next part of the story yet? Yeah, poor artwork, some of the worst writing I've seen in a while, and just the fact that in 4 issues barely anything has happened makes me regret ever starting this mini. 3 out of 10 for sure. Batman and the Outsiders number 12 promises an outsider will die. And that's true, although the issue starts off with a red herring trying to make you think one way, it's pretty obvious who's going to wind up dead. I won't say who, but I'm sorry to say Geoforce has survived another comic. Actually, he wasn't in this one, which is a plus. The team, of course, falls apart without Batman, and with Green Arrow and Batgirl both trying to take the reins, and a calamity with one member dying and another being in a coma, it's safe to say more shakeups are coming. But with an entire first year that's been nothing but shakeups, you have to wonder when this series will find some semblance of stability. Still, it's not bad, and it has decent artwork, so I will give it a 7 out of 10. Booster Gold number 13 is somewhat of a step back in terms of quality, which I suppose is something to be expected, with Geoff Johns no longer riding the title. The issue comes off as both unnecessarily fast-paced and unnecessarily long, which is an odd combination that leads to the feeling that a whole lot happened, but you didn't get to really experience most of it. The art is decent, and the basic idea of the story is fine. It's just the breakneck pace takes away from the strong characterization the book has already been known for. Writer transitions can be hard, especially when following an act like Geoff Johns, but there's still some hope for this book. I'm going to give this particular issue a 6 out of 10. The Brave and the Bold, number 18, is a decent issue that gives us the second part of a Raven and Supergirl team-up, with the plotline and conflict generally being not all that interesting in general, but the character interactions being what drives the book, as usual. Par for the course on this book. I probably couldn't tell you very many things that have happened in past issues of Brave and the Bold, but I could easily point out character interactions that I enjoyed. A solid issue, if a bit weirdly drawn. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. DC Universe Decisions number 3 is again good, although by now I'm done being surprised that it is. By the end of the issue, you'll know why Batman did what he did in the last issue, and you'll also know who the killer is, as well as where even more heroes stand politically. None of which are big surprises once you think about the characters. I remember thinking from her one line in the first issue that Wonder Woman seemed a bit out of character, and she takes more of a spotlight in this issue. I'd have to say, yeah, she seems pretty out of character. This flaw aside, though, this is a pretty damn good comic, and I'm once again intrigued to read the next issue. 8 out of 10. Okay, next up is Final Crisis Legion of Three Worlds number 2. Now, I gotta say, I really like this one, which is somewhat of a surprise, as I didn't care much for the first issue, and I don't care much for the Legion in general, so wow. The introduction of the Green Lantern mythos helps, although it's just a better issue overall. The Geoff Johns and George Perez team works so well that I would be extremely surprised if I didn't see these two work together sometime in the future. All 3 versions of the Legion come together, as well as some of the most terrifying villains in the universe, all led by Superboy Prime. We find out what happened to a Green Lantern's ring after death, with no Mogo to guide it, and we see what happened to Oa and the Guardians, and who the last Green Lantern is. Overall, a great issue, one that completely vindicates the first issue, and as it's all better in context. So 9 out of 10. Final Crisis Rogue's Revenge number 3 is a great way end to a great mini, with the Rogues getting their revenge, Libra making an appearance, Zoom being changed in a fundamental way, and promises of Flash rebirth, and a future fight between the Rogues and the newly resurrected Barry Allen. The gritty artwork worked well for the tone of the book, and it was a real treat to get inside these characters' heads. 9 out of 10. Speaking of the Flash, up next is Flash number 245, which is a decent issue, though it didn't really stand out very much. While he's still dealing with his powers being hampered, and we learn the how behind it, if not the why. Though I think the real why is because Barry Allen's return in Final Crisis. Queen Bee and Carapace are still at it, and their bees manage to find a end attack while he's home. seemingly targeting Linda. I guess we'll find out why next issue. A good solid 7 out of 10. Justice Society of America number 19 doesn't disappoint, with the society being split down the middle over the issue of whether Gog is a threat or a blessing to the world, with some taking sides typically and others, such as the younger Wildcat, being a surprise. The alternate cover art, I thought, actually was misleading. I wanted to mention that. It makes it look like Hawkman is trying to keep Flash and Green Lantern apart, when in reality they remain on the same side, opposite of Hawkman. In the end, Power Girl returns from Earth 2, but in tow is the Justice Society Infinity, meaning the JSA will have to hastily reunite to battle them. Another great issue in a great series, a 9 out of 10. The Spirit number 22 is the best issue of the book since Darwin Cook left and Sergio Aragones took over, which is a positive, because the initial buzz the series originally had was disappearing after Cook left. With this issue, the book could very well make a comeback. The plot is nothing special, with Denny investigating the murder of 2 magicians, but it's the feel and tone of the book that Aragones' trademark humor that make it a winner. Definitely worth checking out. A good solid 8 out of 10. Titans number 6 is less terrible than the first 5 issues, though it's still pretty bad. The whole plot with Raven being tempted by her father's evil is finally over, with her doing what amounts to the equivalent of Superman giving Batman the kryptonite ring. The ending is just confusing because it makes me wonder when this takes place in reference to DC Universe Decisions, as the villain from that book shows up trapped in a Superboy Bizarro body and begging the Titans for help. I won't say who it is because I don't want to spoil. I don't care about spoiling this book because this book sucks, but I don't want to spoil DC Universe Decisions. The art is its usual overblown self, but at least the book is trying to improve. We'll give it a 5 out of 10, being a little generous. Anyway, that's going to be it for this week. I didn't get around to everything. I didn't get around to reviewing Punisher or Robin, and I can't find my copy of Trinity, so I'll have to leave that off for next week. We'll see you next week. Hopefully I can get these out on Thursday or Friday. See you then.